He who is cruel to animals becomes hard also in his dealings with men. We can judge the heart of a man by his treatment of animals. That was from a German philosopher named Immanuel Kant, and the claim I am making today is to prove how animal testing for cosmetic products is unnecessary. My first claim will be to explain how animal testing fails to protect its consumers. Secondly, I will explain what chemicals these animals are being exposed to. And lastly, I will explain and go over the alternatives that we can use instead of animal testing. Firstly, obviously humans and animals are different species, so we cannot show those test results that come from animals relevant to humans. Also, when we test animals such as rats and rabbits, guinea pigs, they are different species from one another, so they will come up with test results different to humans. Secondly, animals are exposed to toxic substances. In the crueltyfreeinternational.org, it explains two types of main forms that they're used for cosmetic testing, one of them being the Draize test and lethal dosage test. The Draize test is mostly used for rabbits, mostly because of their low levels of tears. So what it is that they're placed in this harness where just like their head is popping out, and then they're injected with this unknown chemical into their eyes, mostly for irritation purposes. And half the time the rabbits break their necks trying to get out of the harness, or if not, once they're done with that, they break their necks themselves, the scientists. And the lethal dosage test, that's pretty self-explanatory, but I'll go over a few of it. Mostly what it is that rats are fed for probably about 2 years on end, if not like a few months on end. And it's just to go over what would the dosage be for one known death, pretty much. And all these animals are laboratory bred, so unfortunately the US does not protect them under the Animal Welfare Act, so they do have no rights, so technically they're just bred for our own purposes and for their own benefit. Lastly, there are alternatives to animal testing, one of them being that we do have new technology that does test animal cells and their tissues. So instead of actually using the animals, which is totally unnecessary, we can just use these to test for irritation purposes and lethal dosages. And also, since it is like a faster, newer technology, it does deliver faster results, whereas in animal testing probably takes years on end to receive the results back. And also, instead of testing new products, the companies do have the alternative already testing ingredients that are safe and do not require retesting. So in conclusion, animals should not be tested to benefit one's own appearance. First, because it does fail to protect consumers. We cannot say that the results are relevant to our own. Secondly, we are exposing these animals to these substances, which is not safe for them either. And lastly, we do have the technology to do something else other than animal testing. Thank you.
All right, Carolina, the quote that you have at the beginning is fine, although it is on the brink of introducing a value claim into the argument. You do have a very clear statement of your proposition, and I like that quite well. You also did a good job laying out what the secondary points were going to be. The third of your secondary points is not really labeled as a claim. It's, like I said, it sounds like you're going to list a bunch of alternatives, but what inference should we draw from those alternatives? And that's the thing that's missing as a claim. Your support on the claim is, I think, where there are some weaknesses. On the first point, you basically are saying that it doesn't provide any protection for us, but all you do really is explain what the tests are. You don't explain whether or not those tests are necessary to make sure that the cosmetics are safe for humans to use. There's not really any information whether or not older data could be used to substitute for this. If these tests have failed to provide protection, for instance, if the LD test or the Dre's test said that a cosmetic was safe to use and then it turned out that it wasn't safe to use, that would be an example of something that showed that the tests really weren't benefiting us in any way. We don't have any information like that. I don't have any data about how widespread the use of this is for cosmetics currently. I know that in a lot of parts of the world, I don't know how true it is in the United States, that these tests are almost extinct. The Dre's test, for instance, is largely a figment of the past in Europe. I don't know that whether or not it's still being used in the United States or widely in other parts of the world, and that's something that I think we need to have some data on. One of the issues here, of course, is that the animal testing is seen as being problematic because of consequence to the animals. I mean, you mentioned that they're not covered by the Animal Welfare Act. They're bred for that specific purpose. That's the data in the speech that was clearest to me, that you've got factual data in the speech that identifies that. By the way, I think that you only had a couple of source citations for that type of information, and you need to be more consistent on that. The stuff on the alternative test, for instance, that sounds like it's all asserted. You basically have said that we have other tests that can do this and that they're just as effective, and I kept waiting for the authority who tells us this, the examples that you are going to refer to, the statistical information that suggests how much time we waste and how much money we waste on it. And I just got your claims, so it's claim without any proof, and so you need to get the support into the argument, and that's what's missing in the speech. A little more script dependent than you want to be at this point. You're reading a lot, and I know that sometimes that's the way people deal with their anxiety, but you're also trying to convince an audience, and if you want to get some credibility with the audience, it really helps if you look at them when you're talking to them about the point that you're making. All right, thank you.